Pennsylvania's history, and the class dealt with marijuana laws. Steve, can you explain to our listeners what you were doing, like a little bit about the continuing legal education class that you held?
Sure. So I'm, as far as I know, I'm the first regulated substances lawyer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I believe in that position I have a duty to educate fellow lawyers. You know, what's the law going to be, and let's talk about the social uses of this plant. Let's demystify this. Let's take the stigma out of this. Let's talk about how good this is going to be for our population and also for business. I mean, these guys are here. They're interested in money. Let's talk about how it's a triple bottom line, that this is good for our patients, this is good for our environment, this is good for everybody.
And with the class, the lawyers that attend, they'll I know Normal has like a legal system set up with lawyers and things like that. Are you looking to reciprocate something in that nature?
Sure. So I'm also a member of Normal's legal committee, and I help out in an amicus sense in legal battles that have been fought. I'm helping out in an issue in Colorado right now. A private dispensary is being sued by a very famous hotel chain, and I'm helping out defending them.
Hey, I noticed...
Chain?
Not the hotel chain.
Okay, the little guy.
The little guy.
Sweet.
I noticed a couple things you said. I want to jump in, Steve. One, you talked about reciprocity, and that's a good thing in Pennsylvania. Actually, I went out to Pittsburgh to one of the state, I don't know what they call it, the health department committee that's studying the bill. Went to one of their meetings in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, and that was the thing that I brought up to. I don't remember the senator's name, but I talked to her about the reciprocity, which I think is great that Pennsylvania is even considering it. New Jersey didn't. I myself actually have an appeal before the New Jersey Appellate Court where I'm arguing. You know, one of the things I'm arguing is reciprocity. That was one thing I want to bring up to you. The other thing, you just called it social use. And I think that's like the best thing. I constantly tell people it's not recreational. We're not like lifting weights and, running around a track and smoking weed. No, it's social use. Usually you're passing it to your buddy. So I'm glad you used the word social use. And another thing, you said you were the only substance lawyer.
Regulated substance.
I'm not questioning you, but I do happen to have been in contact with a couple of lawyers in Pennsylvania that I thought they would fall in that category.
So I would say first, not only.
Okay,
it's a popular bandwagon these days.
Okay, there we go. I'll just leave it there. I won't throw no names. I'll just leave it out there like that. But that's all. It's all good. And one last thing, and I can't help it because you brought up amicus, that you have filed amicus briefs, friend of the court briefs for other people, other cases.
I haven't filed them, but I've assisted. I've given some free legal advice on
Advised.
that. I'm using big words over here.
No, but it's all good because you know what? I mean, it's right up my alley. Like I've put out there, I've represented myself a few times, and a lot of times I know my legal argument is right. I know it's correct. I've cross-referenced it. I shepherdized it. I know it's right. And then I can never find lawyers who will file an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, to assist me. Not so much to represent me or anything, just to throw it out there. So I'm happy that you do that, and not to throw anybody under the bus. But every one of that organization right here in New Jersey, I'm not going to name them, but I've asked every single one of them from time to time to file amicus briefs on my behalf, and they've always rejected it. So the fact that you do that, gives you an A+ in my book.
Thanks, brother.
There you go.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, when we did our Poor People's Parade for pot, we in Camden, was that last week or?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
A little week and a half ago. We stopped at South Jersey Legal Services, and we gave a shout out to all the activist lawyers who help us, get out of jail and, are helping write legislation, because I feel like lawyers are so behind the scenes and not out in the streets a lot, being crazy like we are, And so we just wanted to thank all of you, for help, even just advising and helping, people sort through legal documents, searching through this bill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even hide it. I have this animosity, I think, towards lawyers a lot, because I think half the reason why we have these problems in the law is because lawyers wrote them. You know what I mean? It's lawyers behind everything. Even when you're mad at police officers, to be honest with you, they're just following the job that lawyers put them up to do. So when I find a lawyer who is on our side or out in front of the social issues, you know, I have to give you two hands, you know, give you a big 420 or, you know, two bubblers, what, you know, I don't know. So that's great. And like she said, we stopped at the at legal aid, and I find the legal aid lawyers are usually socially down. They're so conscious of all these issues, but they're just overwhelmed and they're understaffed and you know, things like that. I actually interned for a few months back in like 2004, 2005 at a legal aid center, just trying to, you know, just assist them with like little things. So it's great that you did you do things like that.
Little known facts about Weed Man.
Man, I should tell you a lot. People think there's a method to my madness. I'm telling you, people just don't understand them. I've done it for a couple of lawyers too. I did a lot of legwork for people.
Yeah, because we have to work through a legislative process, which most people don't understand. They can't name their representatives. They don't contact them. They don't know how a bill goes to a committee and gets out. Like, that's foreign to a lot of people. So I think it's our job, you know, as advocates, to work with lawyers, the good ones.
Find out where they are.
And help
there's some everywhere.
Explain it to people.
State.
So I hope people are listening so they, like, kind of get a better hand on what's going on in PA. And so, yeah, just to clarify, we were talking earlier about, you know, the elements of the bill. So, you know, briefly restate, like, the different forms that you can get, because there's been some misinformation circulating on the internet about how this bill does not have flowers, but it indeed does. I saw it in the print.
Sure. So this is Steve Auerbach talking again. I'm the regulated substances lawyer in Pennsylvania, and just to recap, I'm also the executive director of the Cannabis Growers Association of Pennsylvania. I helped advise in the writing of SB 3, and I was helping with the promulgation of HB 193. I've been hearing a lot of misinformation. People are talking about that you can't get whole flower, that now there's no edibles. Well, that happens to be correct. People are concerned that this is only tinctures, and I think you just have to be precise when you read the bill. I see a lot of people commenting online, and God bless them, their hearts are in the right place, but they haven't actually read the bill. If you take a look at the bill, it clearly does say definition of cannabis includes whole plant. Now, the second stanza of it says it includes tinctures, ointments, etc., but it doesn't say includes but limited to. That's just, you know, fancy non-legalese to say yes, you can get whole flower. The problem becomes later on the bill. It says that you can't vaporize it or smoke it. So what do you do if you have whole flower but you can't smoke it or vape it? We hope to fix that problem 2:30 today in floor amendments where we can get vaporization in there.
For all our listeners listening, can you explain what's happening today?
Sure.
At 2:30.
So at 2:30 after the caucus, SB 3, they're going to introduce some amendments to it. So if you pull up SB 3 on the Google, if you just Google Pennsylvania Senate Bill 3, you're going to see a bill that it's a nice try, but it's not quite there. And the reason for that is we're just trying to get this out as soon as possible. It's try and save lives, but it's not nearly comprehensive enough. And anyone involved, Senator Falmer's office, he apologizes profusely for this, but we're trying to amend this on the floor. Meaning, before we even vote to this, it's in front of the Senate right now. We say, hey, there's this thing called vaporization. We can save lives with it. It's a more effective means of ingestion for some people. I mean, especially, can you imagine if you have a Crohn's disease or some kind of serious digestive problem where you can't have alcohol, and a doctor's saying, yeah, have this cannabis, but it's infused with alcohol. Yeah. I mean, that's a horrible idea. Especially if you have a massive meal and then you have an edible, or you have something that you digest. The onset could take 2 hours, and it could be in your system for 6 hours.
Right. Definitely.
Now, is this just for vaporizing? How about for smoking?
We're not going to see smoking. At least in Pennsylvania, we're not there yet. When we have social use.
What is their reasoning for excluding smoking when they allow tobacco smoking?
I think it's ignorance, and what we were saying earlier is it's inertia. I think people are afraid that, hey, medicine isn't smoked. I know what medicine looks like. I go to CVS, I go to Rite Aid, it comes in a pill. I don't smoke my medicine. These are these dirty hippies who, want this to get high. So it's judicial compromise. We're trying to get this out as quickly as possible. And if we can get vaporization, I think that's a great start.
I think you just gave me a idea, Steve.
What's a idea?
A idea is a really good idea. It just happens to be when you're stoned. And I think we should start a campaign that says I smoke my medicine, right? Because so many of us do smoke our medicine. And I know that Delaware Normal has like these two guys that come out. They bring a giant bong, and they bring like a guy dressed in a suit, like a giant hemp leaf. And
shout out to Hempy.
Hempy, right? But Marijuana Policy Project came in to one of their meetings and said, I think you should stop using the bong because it's really negative and there's so much stigma attached to it, and it's not going to help with our decrim bill. And, somebody stood up and said, but I use the bong to smoke my medicine. And it's medicinal, and it represents like healing. And that's what we need to show people. The bong is harmless. And everyone kind of like cheered. They were like, yeah, like we support this bong and we support Hempy. And I think that, I smoke my medicine campaign would hopefully like open people's eyes and showing them that like smoking it is totally safe. And now there's more research to support that, people who smoke marijuana are not as likely to get cancer as somebody who smokes tobacco.
To touch on what Vanessa kind of said, I'm kind of guess because I watched the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight, but it's kind of like boxing. You guys are in the first round. It sounds like you guys are in the first round of getting.
But that was a track meet, not a boxing match. All right, never mind.
That was a love fest.
Hey, whatever you guys want to call it. But now, it sounds like you guys are in the first round of getting cannabis accessible to the people in Pennsylvania. I guess one of the downfalls or one of the power punches that you guys, being SB3, the bill, will take is not smoking. Do you plan on in the later rounds to finally initiate that act, and how long do you plan on before you actually start trying to make that a necessity?
So just how I act, I only fight battles I can win. I'm not going to go in the ring with Mayweather. I'm 150 pounds soaking wet. I'm going to get tossed out pretty hard. I want to touch back on what Vanessa was saying. Is people's perception. And unfortunately, there are a lot of misguided people who see a bong, they see something harmful. They have a lot of connotations with it. For our people who are just listening and not watching, people call me a rabbi. I'm not a rabbi. I'm a.
Are you the weed rabbi?
That's funny. Don't tell my mom that. But I am a very spiritual and religious person, and openly so, and that gives me some interesting fights. I had a fight with the Westboro Baptist Church. We can get into that. But it gives me indoors and in routes where many people don't have. I was in the Welsh countryside, and I was in the back of a cab, and a very nice cab driver from Sri Lanka or somewhere turned around and saw my kippah on my head and said, "Sir, but can I ask you a personal question?" Sure. I said, "What's that on your head?" And I explained, well, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and this is what we do, and I was explaining that. And it occurred to me that this man had gone his entire life without seeing a rabbi, without seeing a Torah-observant Jew. Every action that I go from henceforward, he's going to carry for the rest of his life. If he ever thinks of a Jew joke, if he ever thinks of a stereotype, he's going to think about Steve Auerbach, this lawyer from Pennsylvania. And I think we as canna activists have to keep that in mind too. If we are open and we're supporting legalization, what kind of messages are we sending? For some little old lady in Johnstown who doesn't know that her kids smoke pot, and she's going to be asked, do you support social use of cannabis? We need to make sure that we're putting forth an effective message. So that's my only concern if we have a big bong. And I mean, I do support MPP, but I see both sides of the argument. And I think that my message for that is that we need to be socially conscious and aware of what our messages and actions connote.
Steve, back up a second.